this works because there's not much light in here. Many years ago, I had a 500 Triumph, an old 5TA, and I was going really fast. I was going up I think it was the M5 or something like that, and this old Triumph, it's been really reliable, but it used a lot of oil, and I remember that whenever I checked the oil, it would use a lot, the tank would be fuming, so I knew it had issues, but I was young and naive, didn't really know what was going on, and I was hammering on the motorway, the highway, and it started making this strange noise, and I thought, oh, that's a bit odd, maybe it just needs to be cleared out, so I changed down and gave it full throttle, and lo and behold, a few seconds later I had no engine, a big puddle of dripping oil and a big hole in the crankcase, and a conrod, well, what's left of it, sticking to the crankcase. So ever since then I've been really gun shy about oil pressure. It's one of those things. I always think that if I'd had a gauge or a light, I would have known that there was trouble, because I'm sure this bike was running really low oil pressure the whole time. So recently, this BSA 65 that I got as a chopper from Wisconsin that needed a lot of work. It had been chopperized. And so I rebuilt the engine. I noticed that the early A65s, unlike the later ones, don't have an oil pressure switch or a takeoff point or anywhere to put a gauge. And I thought, well, let's have a look at that and see what I can do about it. And I decided that I was going to fit a tapping to put an oil pressure gauge or a switch on, so that, you know, if there's problems with the motor, I'll know. You know, A65 is notorious for blowing rods from low oil pressure. If the timing side bearing is worn, and the oil pressure through the big ends, which is fed from the timing side main bearing, well, from the oil pump via the timing side main bearing through to the big ends, if that drops, then the big end sees, and you end up with the same scenario: a hole in the crankcase and a rod poking through. So I thought, I want to be sure I've got good oil pressure. This engine actually was good. I stripped it down. I only had 6,000 miles in it, and actually I probably could have reused the old rod bearings, but I didn't. I put new ones in, made sure everything was nice and clean, put everything back together, and I put in this oil pressure switch. And I'm going to show you exactly what I did. Before I do that, actually, very briefly, I did this with the bare crankcases. There was nothing in them. They were split. No crankshaft, no barrels, pistons, nothing. So I just joined the crankcases together, popped them in the frame to see, you know, how I could get the angles and the clearance right for this oil pressure takeoff point, and I came up with this scenario, and I was quite prepared to have to weld the hole back in had I made a big mistake. But as it turned out, it's been very successful. This bike's done about 1,000 miles, runs beautifully. Oil light goes off as soon as you fire the motor up. It never comes on even when the bike's stinking hot and it's idling. As soon as you shut it off, boom, back on again. So I know everything's working there. So I'm going to show you. Right, I've got some illumination down here, so I'm hoping I've got enough illumination. If you see down here, you can see this is actually off a T140, this oil pressure switch. I'm going to try and get a slightly better view of it. You can see that it's angled because I had to go in behind the oil pressure release valve. Goes into the crankcase just there. On the later A65s, they have a little bulge on the crankcase, and they've actually fitted there's a facility for putting, well, there is an oil pressure switch on the later A65s, because they put the bulge in, they cast it in, then they drilled it and cut a 1/8 MPT thread in there, and they put in an oil pressure switch. So that's basically what I've done here. But it was a little bit of a challenge, because as you can see, I can't really see what the camera's looking at now, but as you can see, I've had to put it in an angle. I had to clear the down tube for the frame and also the exhaust pipe, and it had to go, because you can't just feed straight in because the oil pressure relief switch is in the way, so it had to angle in and behind it, which you can probably just about see there, and which I did. And then I tried it. I put the oil pressure switch in, and I checked the clearance. Sure enough, there was enough space for the switch, and I put it in, and I put an extension on it, as you can see down there. I think I'm zooming in. I don't know what else is doing that. Yep, you can just see the extension on there. So it's just basically it's a 1/8 pipe thread spud on there with an extension on it, and it's now got the oil pressure switch. And if you wanted to, you could just run a line from there, or you could tee it and run an oil pressure gauge off it, and run a switch off the other side of it. So I'm confident that when this A65 has had its day, that it's not just going to blow up. So anyway, that's my little tip for the day. I'm just going to put this back on the camera, put the camera back on the stand, and I do recommend this. I'm sure that there'll be the clasher of dropped chins all around the world. I should do that to an old 67 crankcase, but it works for me. And if you use a bike on a regular basis, as I do, and actually for some seriously long trips, I put 1,000 miles on this last summer, and that was just braking in. I didn't really go that far, but I'm going to. I want to be sure that I've got good oil pressure. So there we have it. Have a good day.